the next soapbox session is starting now, and I am delighted to introduce to you Fran O'Hara with his topic of Agile testing and lessons learned from waterfall. So please give a round of applause to Fran.
Right, thank you very much. Oh yeah, stand up on the soapbox. Yeah. So hello everyone. I spoke on Agile testing. Okay, I spoke on Agile testing on Monday, and this is really just a couple of key points from that. Lessons from waterfall. Normally when we talk about waterfall, we talk about the bad things from waterfall. So this, just to be a little bit different, I just wanted to talk about, well, are there any good things from waterfall that we can actually take and maybe adapt to Agile? Are there things from waterfall that we've lost that are actually causing us problems now in Agile? And I just want to talk about one or two of those that I think are actually an issue for Agile. One of them, I think that's been missed a bit in Agile teams is risk-based testing. We don't really talk about risk in a lot of Agile teams. We just start testing user stories. We do have a discussion around sprint planning sessions, around what we need to do to implement these stories, but I don't hear the conversation of risk that much. Similarly, when we're doing some release planning and we're thinking about the high-level set of features that we want to include in a release and what the scope is, again, at that release level, that higher-level planning and how many sprints we're going to need to actually create that release. Again, the discussion of risk can happen at that level, but again, it's not something I observe very frequently in Agile teams. So I think I'm not suggesting that we will do in Agile maybe what we traditionally did in Waterfall, maybe creating big spreadsheets of risks and analysing their impact and their likelihood to create prioritised lists and having traceability between those risks and tests and so on, going that full route of full-blown structured risk-based testing, but at least having the conversation about what the risks are, where the bigger risks might be, the nature of those risks to inform our testing at a kind of a global level in terms of the scope that we're planning to work on for the next series of sprints, and then at a more local level within the scope that we're going to do within the sprint during our sprint planning session. So that's one thing that I think we can maybe adapt from waterfall into an Agile context. The other one that I just want to mention maybe here, just for the few minutes I have, is when we talk about management documentation, your traditional IS-TQB management documentation, two of the key ones that spring to mind are test strategies and test plans. Now I think test strategies are really important to have in an Agile context. An Agile test strategy can be very, very useful when you're trying to transition to Agile, to provide a guideline for the Agile teams in terms of the kind of testing we should be thinking of doing in the teams based on the nature of the products that we're developing, the nature of the risk with those products, and what we can do right now in terms of the testing, and what we're capable of in terms of, if we look at married squadrons, what kind of testing we could be doing in terms of the automation pyramid, and what right now we're able to do. Now obviously that strategy will evolve, we will mature, we will be able to do greater levels of automation potentially that maybe right now we can't do. But having putting thought into what might be a good guideline for how to do testing around here when we're transitioning to Agile, and then watching that strategy evolve. Now, I'm not again suggesting a 50-page Agile test strategy. It might be one page, it might be a whiteboard, but the whole point is somebody thinks about in an organization what is a good way to do testing around here. And that is a guideline and a very useful resource then for the Agile teams when they're thinking about testing. The absence of an Agile test strategy means that what I've seen is that Agile teams struggle in terms of figuring out how to do Agile testing. They're all trying to reinvent the wheel. And what follows then in terms of the other test management document is the test plan. Typically, we don't write test plans in Agile because, Agile's about no docs, isn't it? Yeah, so one of the docs we get rid of is the test plan. So again, I've seen a lot of organizations start to really introduce the concept of a test plan at the higher level, at the release level. So when we're thinking about the scope of that product backlog that we actually want to include in our next release and how many sprints it's going to take us to do that, thinking there about, again, what approach we're going to take to testing, maybe derived from an overall higher level generic test strategy is really important. It can be very valuable to actually think globally like that. Think about the big picture. Think about the high-level risks. What about functional aspects? What about non-functional aspects? Because if you don't do that, what happens, what I see happening in Agile teams is that we just get blinkered by user stories. And all we do is go sprint to sprint, pull in a bunch of user stories and test those stories in isolation. Nobody's thinking about the higher level story interaction, feature level, workflow, non-functional aspects until maybe it's too late, and then suddenly you're hit with big problems associated with some of the non-functional aspects. So if you have a strategy, great. If you don't, think about coming up with the approach on the project at an early point when you're thinking about the release level planning. Now again, I'm not suggesting a big test plan. Of course, this test plan won't have any scheduling information in it because testing is not estimated and scheduled separately. It's done as part of your story point estimation and your release plan. However, the other elements that are typically in your traditional test plans, the heart of that test plan is the test approach. So thinking about what kind of testing you need to do, where are the risks, and how that testing is going to be distributed across the sprints. So for example, what can we do every sprint? What can we, at this point in time, only do towards latter sprints? What can the teams, for example, right now not handle themselves that is going to be done separately outside the sprints? And as we mature, maybe we can integrate that more into the sprints by the teams themselves. So again, thinking through these issues at an early point, I think is, again, quite a valuable thing to do. The absence of it, the absence of the strategy, the absence of the test planning causes problems in what I've seen in Agile teams. So it's one of those things I think we've thrown that baby out with the bathwater when we've moved from waterfall to Agile. So just a couple of thoughts there in relation to waterfall is not all that bad if we can adapt some of these things. Any comments on all that? Any questions? No? Okay, let's get off my soapbox then. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very